wanted to ask Attorney General Shapiro with regard to the FCC. As you know, the FCC has proposed a rule, we mentioned that earlier, that will help curb spoofing and make it a bit harder for con artists to disguise themselves. Earlier this year, the two of us wrote separate letters to the FCC requesting the proposed rule be finalized, and later today we'll be sending a joint letter asking for the same. Why do you believe this rule is so important at this time to have it implemented, and how will it help you in your work as Attorney General attacking these schemes?
Well, Senator, thank you for your question, and also, again, thank you for your leadership in this area. Look, scammers are only successful if they can pretend to be someone else, right? We know that these scams have a 0.5% success rate. So we know that the combination of education and outreach, the good work that this committee and others are doing to make seniors aware of these kinds of scams, it's working. But still, this 0.5%, because of just the sheer magnitude, the sheer volume of the number of calls, is something that ultimately is still hitting a lot of seniors in Pennsylvania and across the United States. I spoke about the example of the John case in the Pittsburgh area here in Pennsylvania. We need in law enforcement to have all of the tools necessary to stop this. Senator, I'll share with you that we issued 2,141 subpoenas last year in cases involving these kinds of calls. It only resulted in 4 legal actions. Part of that is because this spoofing technology is so difficult to penetrate. It's so difficult for us to get to the bottom of that it becomes very hard to trace it back to the scammers and ultimately prosecute them. And we're working incredibly hard at this, as I know my colleagues are around the country as well, and it still only resulted in 4 actions. If the FCC gives the telecom companies the power to stop these kind of spoof calls, it makes our job in law enforcement easier to protect seniors from these kinds of scams. I would note, Senator, that your letter to the FCC, others, represents a bipartisan commitment at the highest levels of government. I am hopeful that the FCC will do this. To be frank with you, I can't imagine a reason why the FCC wouldn't approve this. The telecom companies have the technology available to them to stop these spoof calls. We should allow them to flip that switch on and do that work. And so having the strength of this committee, having the strength, Senator, of you, 29 attorneys general coming together behind this, it's going to make us be able to deal with the task of protecting seniors from telephonic scams easier and more successful.
Thanks very much. Madam Chair, thank you. Thanks very much. I wanted to go back to an issue we raised earlier, the Elder Abuse Protection and Prosecution Act, which in fact passed the House last night by voice vote. I wanted to ask Attorney General Shapiro about that as well. The legislation will, among other provisions, provide law enforcement officials with prosecution tools to reduce crimes against seniors and bring perpetrators to justice. I know how important this is to you and to your work. Just from a purely law enforcement perspective, how do you think this will help you in your fight to curb both frauds and scams, and in ways that would help this bill with your efforts at the state level?
Thank you, Senator. I think this bill would be very helpful to us in law enforcement. Look, I think we all agree we need to punish the criminals who scam our seniors, and so this bill would give some added tools to us. It would provide us with more resources and person power, which of course is always good in this effort. In my experience, and I think you see this dealing with the heroin and opioid epidemic, which I know, Senator, you and Chairman Collins and others have worked so diligently on, having greater collaboration in law enforcement between federal, state, and local partners is really key. So this bill would increase the possibility for that and increase the information sharing that's available. I like in the bill that it increases training for federal investigators and prosecutors, and it equips each judicial district with someone specifically knowledgeable about the kind of elder abuse cases that are out there. I'd love to see some of those dollars come to state prosecutors as well so that we can be part of that training. I would also say that having the elder abuse coordinator, I think it's called, within the FTC, I don't want to speak for the FTC, but to me seems like a very good idea. So overall, I think this is a really important piece of legislation, and I would urge its passage.